Now, also in America, I have been fascinated, like everyone else, to see the reality of that fraud Anthony Fauci. And I say fraud because while this bloke may well have been an expert who's been around for many, many years, he seemed to very much love the limelight to the extent that he's doing interviews on Australian television, when, of course, his job is supposed to be like the chief medical officer of the United States, that, yes, is getting on top of the pandemic because of its huge vaccination rollouts. But this bloke never stops. Now, as you know, evidence has been building by the day. It's been there for anyone who's been willing to see, and well done to our mate Sherry Markson, who has been reporting on it since day one, that more than likely this thing ended up coming out of that lab in Wuhan. There was also plenty of evidence that organisations ended up with some taxpayer money via the Fauci office that ended up funding what they were doing at the Institute of Virology, my apologies, in Wuhan. But there's a new defence here for Dr. Fauci. Despite the fact that he has said one thing and wrote privately another, despite the fact that there is a trail of money that shows that American taxpayer money took a long journey but eventually got to the very same lab where people were sick way before the pandemic was attributed to things like wet markets. Well, the new defence of Anthony Fauci is the good old-fashioned Jedi mind trick, which is to change the subject. There's nothing to see here. Even though every day there's plenty to see here, if you're just willing to look.
That he was saying one thing in email and then coming to this microphone and saying something else. If that is the case, and if that affected the U.S. policy posture at the time, should he be held accountable?
Well, I've talked a little bit about Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci has been out doing several interviews himself and answering questions on these emails and questions that you all may have. Dr. Fauci is a renowned public servant, civil servant, I should say, career civil servant. He's overseen management of multiple global health crises, and the attacks and attacks launched on him are certainly something we wouldn't stand by.
What? His email showed that he was saying something different than what he was saying publicly. The trail of money shows that there was American taxpayer money that ended up at the same lab where things started to get out of control. Yet nothing to see here. And you see how the feedback loop works, which is, if the left wants to, they can decide to turn something into a multiple-day scandal. Sources close to, anonymous, this, that and the other. You have black and white paper trail here reporting up the wazoo that shows here there's plenty of questions to answer. But the White House says he's a respected public servant. And lefties in the media on free-to-air television in the US, well, they just change the subject.
I mean, they just keep reaching and reaching and reaching, trying to find something here, and there is nothing. And I guess for me, it's the hypocrisy from the Senate Republicans who did not want to form a bipartisan commission for the January 6th insurrection, but yet they want to continue this narrative and these attacks on Dr. Fauci.
What? We're back to January 6th?